10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Tam Talks. I'm your host, Isaiah. Today we will have a guest reappearance. Please welcome back the FEU Manila students. For today's episode, they will talk about the Indigenous people's rights. Now, to start the show, I will ask Gio to talk about the Indigenous people.
The Philippines consists of numerous upland and lowland indigenous ethno-linguistic groups living in the country. Many of the 110 ethno-linguistic indigenous communities in the Philippines are victims of discriminations, resource depletion, and violent conflict. There are significant rates of unemployment, underemployment, and illiteracy in indigenous people communities, which are typically located in unique ancestral lands. Indigenous peoples' socioeconomic, cultural, and spiritual life revolve around their ancestral territories. Yet, their land ownership is being reduced and neglected. However, modernization, the pressure of economic growth, a lack of solid rights to land and resources, migration, and a lack of cultural education are destroying indigenous cultures and traditions all over the world. As a direct result of this, many people are facing an uphill battle to preserve their distinct cultures, knowledge systems, and identities. Despite the rising acknowledgement that they hold the key to solve many of the environmental challenges that we face today, this is not the reality.
Thank you very much, Gio, for discussing the Indigenous people and who are they in the modern world we live in, and how modernization affects their culture and even the preservation of lands that they live in. Now, I will ask our next guest, Bea, to discuss the injustices that have been committed against the indigenous people.
The Philippines is a culturally diverse country with an estimated 14 to 17 million indigenous peoples belonging to 110 ethno-linguistic groups. They are mainly concentrated in northern Luzon, Cordillera Administrative Region 33%, and Mindanao 61%, with some groups in the Visayas area. The Philippine Constitution, in recognition of this diversity and under the framework of national unity and development, mandates state recognition, protection, promotion, and fulfillment of the rights of indigenous peoples. Further, Republic Act 8371, also known as the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, recognized the right of IPs to manage their ancestral domains and has become the cornerstone of current national policy on IPs. Yet, despite these guarantees, the fact is that wherever IPs live, they remain among the poorest and most disadvantaged peoples. The first ever report on the state of the world of indigenous peoples, issued by the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in January 2010, revealed that IPs make up fully one-third of the world's poorest people suffer, disproportionately in areas like health, education, and human rights, and regularly face systemic discrimination and exclusion.
Thank you very much, Bea, for discussing the injustices that have been committed against the indigenous people. Now we will have Jewel to discuss why the indigenous people are in danger because of modernization.
The government forgotten about indigenous community, which is struggling. Despite being physically separated from society, they risk being killed or arrested and tortured as suspect armed opposition member. They lack access to social services, sustainable livelihoods, farm-to-market channels, and healthcare. Consumption and modern culture have made it harder to sustain traditional and rituals. Moreover, as indigenous people rely on environment and the resources of their lands and territories, climate change, deforestation, pollution, development, and loss of diversity pose several risks to them. It results in the lost tradition knowledge as well as the disintegration of traditional governing system and cultures. This policy briefing gives instances of indigenous people holistic perspective on resources governance, land rights, mitigating effects of climate change on their environment, and developing resilience via the utilization of their traditional knowledge.
Thank you very much, Jul, for discussing why is indigenous people endangered because of modernization. Now we will have Ace to discuss about the other issues that the indigenous people are facing.
It is indeed that indigenous people are still deprived of the basic rights that we all experience, as they have stated. However, aside from these issues, the right to education is also a dilemma that they can still not have a concrete solution to. There are numerous reasons why indigenous people are still incapable of having a quality education, such as its geographic location, an insufficient or limited number of teachers that can acknowledge their practices in native languages, issues against the government, and so on. According to the UNICEF organization study, around 48.5% of IPs in Mindanao attend primary school. Still, 11.2% finish basic education, which is evidently alarming since not more than half in that community can access a quality education, what more to the other localities. I know that LGUs are trying their best to answer to these concerns, but sadly, it is still not enough. Suppose our government should provide more comprehensive plans for the IT, such as building more schools, allocating more funds, and offering a more inclusive curriculum. In that case, I guess it would lead to a greater difference.
What a very eye-opening episode this has been for the Tam Talks today. We have our guest talk about the indigenous people and how are they giving not basic human rights and how the government is being unjust to them. And why is the indigenous people are endangered because of modernization. And lastly, the issues that are being swept aside because they're indigenous people. Most notably is their right for education. This will be the end of the episode today. Thank you for watching, and again, I'm your host, Isaiah, and this is Tam Talk.